Is the government doing enough for first home buyers?
I know there is the first home buyers scheme, but I think that only covers properties up to a certain value, maybe 600,000 or 700,000.
Priorities of young people as well may have shifted from like 20 or so years ago, so it's a balance of different things, but I do think the government could be doing a little bit more to help.
I just think they're doing enough in terms of any incentive that they give will probably just increase the price, and therefore the only winners are the actual first home sellers more than the first home buyers.
1.275.
People who are in their 20s, I just don't know how they buy a house, full stop. So whether or not the government can do things, possibly. But yeah, to me it's more an economic issue.
Get rid of the stamp duty for first home buyers.
Our son took advantage of the first home buyers grant in buying an off-the-plan apartment, so that was hugely helpful to him as a young person. Being able to purchase a property, it does make a big difference.
Sold! To you, congratulations.
Someone who's always on the side of first home buyers is buyers advocate Nicole Jacobs. Great to have you with us, Nick. You're dealing with a variety of buyers each and every week. So what's the reaction from some of your clients to what the government is doing with the first home buyers scheme?
It's really interesting actually, Shelley, because what we're seeing with the first home buyer market is that they're actually saying, forget about what the government's offering us, we actually need to get into the market. And I think, as Effie was saying earlier, if you'd bought it last year, you're probably in a better position than you are now. And so we've seen the first home buyer market and the lower income earners actually just saying, look, let's forgo that. Let's put that and go above that 750 bracket which they had originally. So they're stretching themselves further and further.
Right, so that's interesting because the maximum purchase price differs around the country. In Victoria, it's 600,000. In Melbourne and Geelong, different elsewhere. But so you're saying that a lot of first home buyers are saying, well, I'm sorry, that's not going to get us what we need in the city. Is that right?
And it absolutely isn't either. We're seeing almost like nightclub openings where from the front door through to the street, you've actually got people lining up to get into these. And just after Christmas, actually, we put in an offer for a client and there was 16 offers on the table. We advised our client that it could go to about 780 with competition. It went for 853.
Oh, wow.
So and that was 90% first home buyers going for that.
That's crazy, isn't it? And the banks are obviously quite keen to start lending money again because, you know, interest rates are so low and they're wanting customers. But you've got to think of the long road, don't you? If you're taking a loan out over 30 years, what kind of repayments? I mean, you've got to think, OK, well, I'm in now, but how do you make the repayments every week and over that period of time?
I heard the most alarming statistic the other day is that if you have a mortgage of $600,000 over a 30-year period, you're going to be paying back in excess of $2 million over that period. Wow. So that's crazy. And that's just that's servicing the mortgage only. So you're not even putting food on the table or kids to private school. I mean, forget it. All their lessons and all the extra things that come with life. So, I mean, that's a huge, huge amount of money.
Can you hope for that much growth over 30 years? Like, is that property going to be worth your $2.6 million by the time you sell it in 30 years' time if you hang in there?
It's just an impossible thing to look at a property market over 30 years. But, I mean, it just sounds a bit like the federal government isn't really riding in on a white horse here for first home buyers because it's only 10,000 spots and that's at best going to service 1 in 10 first home buyers?
It's not enough. You know, I think we really do need to abolish stamp duty for them because if you're looking at something at $800,000, for instance, which is well over now what we're saying is a first home buyer grant, you're looking at about $42,000 in stamp duty. Now, that's a huge amount of money. That's their deposit. That's so many other things for a first home buyer. So I think that we really need to have a look at what we're doing for them.
And the thing is too, we're not just talking about people moving out of home. I mean, first home buyers now can be in their 30s or 40s with kids that have now decided it's time to jump in. Perhaps have always been on that sort of rental treadmill beforehand. And they do have all those other expenses.
It's so true. Yeah, we're not just looking at that young couple anymore. We're looking at professional couples and they may not even then qualify because maybe they're earning a little bit more, but even if they're earning 100,000, that's a lot of money, but it's not enough to actually service these mortgages, which is crazy, isn't it?
So where can you get that advice from, Chris? Obviously, you've got your banker, your real estate agent, but we're talking there's the first home buyers scheme, there's the first home buyers grant, there's all sorts of other regional incentives happening as well. Who's going to tell you what you can do as an individual or a couple?
Well, there are people like Nick, of course. They know their way around it, but also mortgage brokers are a good resource. You do need to know how they are paid and that the banks pay the write the checks for the mortgage brokers and things like that. So that's worth remembering. But I just think it's fascinating to see what's happening right now. New year, not really new property market. It's flowing straight through from 2019. But are you seeing growth in listings, Nick, out there?
Finally, we saw a dump of listings this week, if I can put it that way. We've been, so short on stock, and I think that's definitely driven the market. And then when we have that shortage of stock, it really does just help everything. But when we've seen more listings now, hopefully buyers have got more choice. Vendors will have to be more realistic. Maybe they don't have 16 offers on the table. They may only have 2 offers or 2 bidders at an auction. But I think we'll actually monitor that, and I'll let you know what's happening.
Yeah, we're in for an exciting 2020.
We
I
are
believe.
indeed.
Thank you, Nick. Look forward to seeing you in the future weeks with answers to more of our questions.
Fantastic.